104.7 The Cave, KKLH, Marshfield, Springfield. Broadcasting from the Lorenz Plumbing, Heating, and Air Studios. Your home for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
It's Ned Talk, your live and local Chiefs pregame show. Hosted by Ned Reynolds, Joe Westen, and the B-Team. Proud members of the Chiefs Radio Network on 104.7 The Cave.
Well, Ned, we got another glorious Sunday here to sit around and talk about sports. How are you doing?
Just great. Thank you for asking. And you're right, it's a beautiful day. Sun is shining. It's just crisp enough to be pleasantly cool and a great day to get outside and enjoy.
It is Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, your local live sports talk show. I am Joe Westen. That was Ned Reynolds. Alex Scott with us. Josh Roberts with us. And I guess the place for us to start is whew. I don't know if that's the right word. I don't know if that's what the Chiefs are thinking right now, but Travis Kelce has decided he will be back for the 2025-2026 season. What do you think, Ned?
Well, I hope he's made the right decision. He'll be 35 years old, and probably he may turn 36 during the course of the year. That I don't know. But 35 years is advanced age for a guy who takes the amount of beating that Travis Kelce does. He is quoted as saying that he didn't want to leave on a, quote, bad note. You're in the Super Bowl, for heaven's sake. That's a bad note. But he wants to go out, I guess, as a winner. There's no guarantee that he's going to be. And actually, in all fairness, this is not likely to happen. But there's no guarantee he makes that team because they do have other tight ends coming in. And the man did not have a great Super Bowl, did not have a great season. So does the coaching staff keep him around at that salary? I'm sure they will. But by the same token, is it a positive for Kansas City?
What do you think, Alec?
I'm not shocked he's coming back. I'm of the mind, I think if the Chiefs had won that Super Bowl, he would have retired. I think that's a high. You go out on the high note, you ride off into the sunset. It's everybody's dream. You've seen a lot of guys in their careers that way. You can't ask for a better way to end it. But, Ned, you're right. He didn't look like the dominant player he used to be this past season. It was a bit of a down. By Travis Kelce standards, it was a down year. And down Travis Kelce standards is still top 10 tight end in the league. He might just not be the guy like he once was. So I think there's a lot of value to that team. There's a lot of that chemistry between him and Patrick Mahomes is still no one's going to have that, so there's still going to be that working for them over the middle. And he might need to play a little less. It might just be a reduced snap count for Kelce as they manage his workload, because at that age for the NFL, that's getting up there. Not most guys are done by the time they hit that point, but I think he still brings a lot of value to the roster, and I think Kansas City is going to be happy to have him back.
Josh, down year for Travis Kelce, still the Chiefs' top receiver, though. 823 yards on the season, but only 3 touchdowns.
Right. Well, yeah, I think that his role changed during the season, whether it be because defenses were keying on him more than others and saying, beat us with your other receivers, or he may have been, at 35, can you say he lost a step? I don't know. He's still a prime athlete, but I'm kind of surprised that he came back, but I think it's fine for the Chiefs. I kind of think they will transition him into a more limited role through the season so that they can get their other tight ends more reps and get them used to what's going to happen. I think that if they do that, I think they'll be fine. And it like we always say, it's a war of attrition in the NFL, and as long as he can stay healthy, he's going to be productive and help them win games. So I think I think it's fine.
Because he has the name and a marketable young lady friend, probably the handwriting is on the wall that he'll stay with the team at least for a while and hopefully avoid injury. That's not the big deal that fascinates me. It's the awarding, or at least the alleged awarding, of the franchise tag. And it's apparently, now they have to do it. The Chiefs, any team in the NFL has to do it by Tuesday, March the 4th. That is the deadline for it. Well, they being the Chiefs, said they're going to apply the franchise tag to Trey Smith, their big left side. And he is huge. But Patrick Mahomes regards him as the bodyguard, the guy that they need. Well, I haven't done it yet, so I assume they'll do it on Monday or maybe early Tuesday. But the franchise tag in his case, Trey Smith, who is 6'6", 320 pounds, and mobile, Can one guy solidify that? He didn't in the Super Bowl, and he was there. All right, having said all that, you have a situation now in which you have put your franchise tag on one guy. Now, the franchise tag guarantees, now, I believe the protocol is that they have until July to work out all the details and then to try to sign him to a long-term contract. And if he doesn't sign, then the franchise tag is, bingo, gone after 1 year, and he'll be a free agent next year. That franchise tag guarantees Trey Smith $23,100,000 a year.
Wow, will somebody franchise me, please?
Well, that makes him the highest-paid offensive lineman in the NFL. 23.1.
At least guard-wise, because I think
Guard-wise,
because
yeah.
the tag is calculated based off of the highest salaries at your position.
That is correct.
So, and it gives the player a nice year's worth of money. But if you're Trey Smith, this is, as Josh just made a point, it's a game of attrition. Yeah. You want that long-term security. So it's okay for a year, but they're trying to, behind the scenes, will keep working on trying to get a long-term deal.
What does it do to your salary cap when you only have a limited amount of money to work with?
Exactly.
That's a good question.
And what sort of long-term security do you need after $23 million in 1 year? That should be it.
That's a bigger question.
Yeah.
How much money do you need to make?
I have 23 cents in my name.
It's about 20 more than I've got, Ned.
This is Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. We're talking about the Chiefs and Travis Kelce coming back, Trey Smith, franchise tag, and some of the moves the Chiefs have to make. And Ned, we were talking before we went on the air. It seemed to be that the pundits, I like to say pundits rather than media, the pundits say the Chiefs need help with wide receiving. They always put that first, and then the offensive line. I don't really see that they need help wide receiving. I mean, depth-wise, I think they're good. I mean, you got to see, the accident that happened to Rashid Rice. That was a freak accident. Again, let's not
the driving or the injury.
The injury.
Oh, okay.
Both were kind of freak accidents. and the driving thing, let's keep that. Let's just pretend he's going to play.
Well, that hasn't been addressed yet.
Yeah.
What is the penalty going to be? Because even if the courts do not adjudicate some kind of a circumstance in which he pays the penalty, the NFL will, and they'll suspend him. He won't be there. I suspect that he will probably get over his injury and be an effective player and so forth and so on, but that's not a positive situation. But do they need a wide receiver? They've got some pretty good ones. And it is more Mahomes having time to get them the ball, because he sure as heck did not against Philadelphia, not at all.
Yeah, exposed once again. I mean, they were able to make it through most of the season with the offensive line that was really patched together. They still haven't found the solution for that left tackle spot.
And they have not. They think they have found a solid point around to build with Trey Smith, assuming that they do sign him, and I'm sure they will. But the fact is, you've got to have other players in there as well. And it isn't we've talked about this before, and there's a misperception on the part of NFL fans that offensive linemen are interchangeable. Just throw anybody in there and they can all play, and that's not the case at all.
And you got to give a lot of credit to Joe Thuney for sliding out to tackle, and I think playing a pretty respectable left tackle for a guy that makes his living at guard.
And I think isn't he a free agent also?
I believe he's still under contract, but because they've got Creed Humphrey in the middle with Trey Smith and Joe Thuney at the guard position. That is right up there with the best of the best as far as an interior of the offensive line. But the tackle position just remains a question mark. They would like to. Thuney was a respectable left tackle, but he's a Pro Bowl guard. So they would rather get him back into a position where he's better and have someone playing a better tackle than having to Band-Aid him out there. But it just, the draft picks are still developing or haven't hit. The free agents haven't been able to fill it. And now in the defense of Kansas City for the roster, you're not going to play a team that has the defensive line depth that Philadelphia has every week. They're special. They are the edge case. It's easy to say, oh, that's the recipe to beat Kansas City. And it's like, okay, well, do you have Nolan Carter? Or Nolan Smith? Do you have Jalen Carter? Do you have Brandon Graham? The list goes on, and 30 NFL teams go, no, we don't. Mm-hmm. And that won't be the same issue. But if you're Kansas City and you've met Philadelphia in the Super Bowl 2 times within the last 3 years, who's your biggest problem right now, it's that defensive front in Philadelphia.
There is a formula for doing it. And I think many teams looked at what Philadelphia did, the adjustments they made. Yeah, they're good players. They're all pros and all that sort of thing. But there's a method that a lot of teams, look what they did over here. I think we can utilize that. Anyway, beside the point, long way to go before the season starts.
Well, if you guys remember when the Chiefs basically had the same thing happen to them against Tampa Bay, the Chiefs invested heavily in an offensive line,
right,
and they got 2 Super Bowls out of that. So I think again, it's what you say all the time, Ned. It's attrition. It's hard to keep the best players in the best spots. They had the guy that went to I can't think of his name right now. Went to Cincinnati this last season. He'd been
Orlando Brown.
Orlando Brown had been a stalwart for them. I mean, you didn't hear his name called that often. And then the guys that they've had, the one that Trey Smith has been terribly penalized during the course of his time there. And then they drafted Kingsley Samata last year, and he just didn't hit.
I mean, maybe not yet. He might still develop. Maybe some guys just need a little more time. But yeah, it gets harder and harder to invest in these elite talents when you despite his team-friendly deal, Patrick Mahomes still eats up a lot of your salary cap. And then a lot of these guys, when the Chiefs have been winning Super Bowls, when you've got that ring already, it gets harder to turn down $10 million extra dollars a year somewhere else. Kansas City would love to keep you. You're a great talent, but they cannot give you the biggest contract.
There's the problem.
And, a lot of these guys' careers is balanced between I need to set myself up for life and I also want to win. Well, they've already won, so what am I going to do? I'm going to set myself up. See Tyreek Hill down in Miami. Yep. See the cornerback that's now with Tennessee. The list will continue, and Kansas City will just have to keep replenishing that talent mostly through the draft. That's how you sustain this long, because you're not going to have the money to spend big in free agency.
I think they have 6 choices in this draft, if I'm not mistaken.
No, let's look that up.
They should all be offensive linemen.
One of them's got to hit.
Well, but that's the thing. I feel like not only did they have a problem with their starters, they didn't have any depth in that line. So it's not like they could have switched them out for somebody that might have done better. So that should be their sole focus, in my opinion, for the draft, is getting linemen in there and getting them trained up and getting them ready and getting them to game speed and have some that are interchangeable, not switching positions, but have a second left tackle that could step in that you feel is almost as good as the one that you decide is the starter. I want the competition between the offensive linemen in training camp to be the biggest competition they have. All these guys are good enough to start. Which ones are we going to keep?
But you have to have a checkbook to make that happen too.
And that's the other problem. That's the downside of being successful in the NFL is you run out of money.
That's the downside in any sport anymore, in college and everywhere. Yeah. Do we have enough money?
And as the league's gone more pass heavy, especially the tackles, the contracts for them are just going up and up. There's a reason the Chiefs have that strong interior and have had to scrape for tackle, and it's because it's tough to afford. Orlando Brown went to Cincinnati because there was more money to be had there, and it's the tackle position is highly valued because they know that's the one that keeps your quarterback upright from the edge.
Now, with the media, I know you can skew a lot of things, but every time they took shots of Orlando Brown trying to block, he was beaten. He was getting whipped by a lot of those guys on every team, not just in Super Bowls or championship caliber, but every one. So I think they had some doubts about whether or not he's an Oklahoma product and a big star and huge.
Big boy.
Goodness. I mean, really big and good lateral movement, but he couldn't keep anybody out of the backfield.
31, 63, 66, 95, 132, and 256. 6 draft picks this year for Kansas City.
6, okay.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They have 2 in the 3rd round and 1 in the 1st and 2nd, 1 in the 4th, none in the 5th and 6th, and 1 in the 7th round. So, and it looks to me like most of the draft pages I'm visiting really quickly have the Chiefs picking, like you said, pretty much, Josh, just nothing but offensive linemen, a safety here and there, But it's hard to say at this point what's going on because the Chiefs are really good at playing things pretty close to the vest.
True.
I know that they've gone out and scouted some people, but how do you see them going this year?
Well, the thing is, I think I trust their management because they've done so well in their drafts in the last few years. I mean, obviously the success is there. So I think, most teams do the best player available, and then if you get somebody that you don't really need, it's trade bait or it's a good bargaining tool of some kind. So I expect they'll probably do that. But I think they do need offensive linemen. I don't remember the names of offensive linemen from college, but there's some big boys coming out just like every year. And so there's going to be an opportunity for them to get, if they wanted to just get 6 offensive linemen in the draft, I'm sure they could, and then see what happens. I don't feel like the rest of their offense needs anything. They just need to all be healthy, because their receiving core I think is great. And if they can incorporate those guys into their offense better because they're all healthy, then I think defensive backfields are going to have a lot of trouble stopping their passing game. And they've got 2 exceptional running backs and a couple of others that are good. So I feel like their offense, the only soft spot in their offense is the offensive line, and the defense is amazing. So in that sense, if I was their GM, I would say, yeah, we're focusing on offensive linemen, and that's it.
It is now. The defense is now. But, there's a key free agent on that defensive group, and that's Nick Bolton.
Yeah, they've got to get Nick Bolton back. He has to come back.
When we come back, we'll talk about something. Slow time of year for sports, but we'll figure something out. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network.
Well, the Chiefs pregame show coming up for you 5 months and 15 days. So just hang tight. It'll be right here on 104.7 The Cave, your home for the Chiefs in Southwest Missouri. Ned and I were arguing a little bit during the break there about this being a lull period. He disagrees with me, and I think that's fair. I think you could say it's not necessarily a lull period, but it's there's the scale of events, of course, is a lot smaller compared to the Super Bowl. I mean, almost everything is.
Immediacy is not there as it was during the football season. But it's not a lull because you've got college basketball, which is really at the boiling point now at both genders, women and men. And you've got the hockey, which is going to be forthcoming, NBA, not until April. Well, the hockey won't be until April either. But And you have college baseball, and we have college baseball right here in town. And, of course, the Major League Baseball actually begins this month. And for the Cubs and Dodgers, it'll be the middle part of the month. And then for the big leagues, everybody opens up on March 27th. 27th. Wow. Think about that. That's not that far away, guys.
Nope. It's 25 days, 3 weeks, just counting down the time for the games to really matter. I mean, spring training to me is way too long. They play a little over a month, and it just becomes a grind. And my team especially have big injuries right now, so I'm like, let's cut this off and just start playing games. That's what I always think.
Well, you make a good point. And the Yankees, the USA Today did a power rating of the Major League Baseball for spring training. And of course, the Dodgers are number 1, Philadelphia's number 2, and the Yankees are number 3. And the reason they listed the Yankees as third is because third base could use some refurbishing. Well, and it was an episode last week that I thought was very interesting. The Cardinals and the Yankees played an exhibition game, which was in Orlando. Where is Steinbrenner Field? Is that Orlando or Tampa? I think it's Tampa. They played it in Tampa. Okay, exhibition game, Cardinals-Yankees. Well, that's 3 hours from Palm Beach or Jupiter, where the Cardinals play. It's a bus trip. That's how they travel in the spring training games, by buses. On that bus trip, and not expected to be, was Nolan Arenado. Going to play the Yankees up in Tampa, Florida? And he wasn't scheduled to be, but he's going anyway? Showcase.
Nice little audition. Yeah.
An audition for them. Well, he went 0 for 3 in the game he did play. And then they got to him afterwards and said, is this a showcase? No. I went up to visit Goldschmidt and DJ LeMahieu and somebody else who are close friends. Balderdash.
I thought you were going to say something else there for a second.
Balderdash is the key word.
I'm not really consider myself a conspiracy theorist, but I thought maybe the sudden change of heart about the facial hair with the Yankees was maybe to entice somebody like Arenado to come play for them, because there's some guys that won't go play for a team that makes you cut your hair and shave. So I thought, well, maybe that was something that they thought, well, if we sweeten the pot here and we can just get this guy, and we can always go back to that rule if we want to. I don't know if he's the type of guy you change a rule for, but,
They made it sound like whether it was one guy, I think just over the course of the history of that rule, I think they had accumulated enough of a list of it being an issue for certain people that it's, we're tired of losing potential free agents because they can't grow a little facial hair. And I'm not a Yankee fan, so I don't have the tradition like that I'm used to, but I would agree. It seems like it seems like a silly thing to enforce on players when that could be costing you baseball games. If a good player, if the money's the same, the locations are both enticing, but I don't have to shave if I go there and I do there. All right, I'll go.
It's really adversely affected that franchise. It really has. I mean, worth very much. They're not. They're not the winningest. They're not the winningest team in the sport.
Have they ever even won a World Series? The Yankees?
No, I don't think so.
So it's not going to hurt them if it goes away either, though. It sounds like.
It's probably the guy that's the team barber, because they have a barber that comes before every game and cleans those guys up.
He's losing his job.
They also have a team jeweler. When they're home, they have a jeweler that comes in before the game and privately shows them, the gold chains that all the MLB players wear and the rings and everything like
Polishes their World Series rings
for them and think, well, nobody on that team's got a World Series ring. You guys were talking about hockey during the break. Let's talk a little bit about that. I'll check out. I'll let you guys just discuss that.
The big thing in hockey is, Alex Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals is closing in on breaking what was often one of the many records that Wayne Gretzky had that was thought to be unbreakable. It's the career goals record. He is 10 away, which means the record's 894. And he's at 884 as of yesterday. And so when Wayne Gretzky retired, I think he had 80 records in the NHL record books that were all him. And most of them are still him. He is by far, like Alec was saying, in most sports you can argue who the greatest player was. You really can't do that in hockey. Wayne Gretzky was the greatest player to play hockey. And it's shown by all these records that he has. So this one, I honestly have mixed feelings about it, because I was a huge Gretzky fan, always have been. Ovechkin, I wasn't a big fan of him in his early days. He's a different type of player. He always was. He's a little rougher. He wasn't the finesse player that Gretzky was. But I've come around to, I've resigned myself to the fact that it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. He's that close. He's going to keep playing till he gets 11 more goals. And it's a pretty amazing milestone. So,
and he's still a viable player for a viable franchise.
Oh yeah,
and that makes a very big difference. Incidentally, Joe, on your scheduling, let's schedule this for the next segment that we have coming up. But there is a move afoot now to reinstate Pete Rose, and we want to talk a little bit about that too. But in the case of Ovechkin, he didn't play in that face-off. That 14 face-off,
right.
And that's because Russia was banned.
They know what they did.
Yeah,
keeping the politics out of sports. Come on, people! But over and above all that, he's a great player.
And longevity is one of the biggest markers in the NHL, because it's a rough sport as well. And for him to have played, what is he in? His 20.
He's over 20 years.
Over 20 seasons. That's amazing.
How many years did it take Gretzky to set the record, though?
Less than that. Gretzky played 20 seasons total. And I think Ovechkin maybe in his 24th or 25th season this year. But what's more impressive with Gretzky is what Alec and I were talking about. Wayne Gretzky not only had the goal record, he also had the assist record and the total points record. And if you took away his goals, he would still be the points leader career because of all the assists he had. No other player has approached that at all, because that's how important Wayne Gretzky was to the teams he was on. Not only was he scoring a bunch of goals, his teammates were scoring a bunch of goals too because he was getting the puck to them in the right position. So that's something that I don't think anybody will approach is the total points record.
Great hockey mind. Great mind. High IQ. Mm-hmm.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about, well, I don't want to, but we're going to, Pete Rose on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network.
All right, I guess we have to talk about this. I don't really want to. Pete Rose. All right. Tell me he was a great baseball player. Got a bunch of hits. Come on. Just tell me all that and why he deserves to be
4,256 of them, as a matter of fact.
Wow, fantastic.
All right, let me set the scene for this here. Yesterday, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, announced that he is going to issue a pardon for Pete Rose. He said, the man served his time. He's no longer with us. Greatest hitter in baseball. I'm going to issue a pardon. Today comes out word that Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, is also exploring methods to reinstate Pete Rose, which in essence would allow him to be elected into the Hall of Fame. So, indeed, what's your thought process on that? There was always the speculation that Pete Rose would get in the Hall of Fame when he left his bodily circumstances, so to speak, on Earth, and he passed off into the baseball Valhalla. That he would be elected to the Hall of Fame. Then apparently that's the case that's going to happen here. Thoughts?
Here's my thought. I think that Shoeless Joe Jackson is in a field somewhere laughing the same way he did about Ty Cobb in Field of Dreams. We don't like that guy, so he's not playing with us.
Right.
So that's pretty much what I think about.
That wasn't Shoeless Joe. That was Ty Cobb is who they were talking about.
No, that's what I said.
Okay.
Shoeless Joe is saying that about Ty Cobb. About Ty Cobb. And I've got a feeling that the players are saying that.
And what he did say, though, and you have to gloss over it, we didn't want the SOB in there anyway. We didn't like him.
Well, look, he cheated.
He did. When they did that all-century team, whenever that was fan voting, and they voted Pete Rose onto that team, right?
Right.
So, regardless, because I have mixed feelings about it because when I was learning about baseball, learning about the history of baseball, the Big Red Machine was one of those teams that I thought, man, these guys were awesome. It was probably awesome to watch them play. And Pete Rose in his prime was a great player. He did commit the cardinal sin in baseball. That's the one thing that baseball has been unforgivable about from day one. Because the Black Sox scandal was in 1919. That's what established the commissionership of baseball, was to police that because it was happening so much leading up to that. So I still have mixed feelings about it. Pete Rose, to the fans, Pete Rose is one of the greatest players ever. They voted him onto the all-century team. So if the Hall of Fame is for the fans...
It's not.
Yeah. But if it was for the fans, you should put him in because that's what they want. But I can see both sides of it, honestly.
I can't.
You cannot tell the history of Major League Baseball without mentioning Pete Rose because he is on the records. The most accomplished just at getting hits. There has not been anyone better in Major League Baseball's history. He has more than anybody, and I think there's a way to recognize the accomplishment of the player while also standing your ground a bit on what has been the punishment for, again, the cardinal sin of the gambling. As we sit here today, I still don't believe there's been any sign that the gambling impacted his ability to play. You're not shaving if you're leading Major League Baseball in hits, but the fact remains he did it, and to soften your ruling now after he has passed away is, it seems like he's just not around for us to remember that he was a jerk who was digging his own grave in a lot of ways.
He did that all the time.
Right.
if you remember, about 10 years ago, there was a real softening on the whole stance. And then he went out and said, yeah, I betted, and I lied that I didn't bet, and I bet on my own team. And it's not the fact that leading baseball in hits, he was managing when he did it.
Right.
Yeah.
So he definitely could control the outcome of games.
He had control over the outcome of those games because he was the manager, and that makes it even worse.
And I think that there's a lot of stuff there that we don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff that Major League Baseball has kept out of the public knowledge about what Pete Rose did.
So my opinion is, the records as a player, those let those stand. Don't strike his name from the record book. I think those, but also, if you've been so adamant about it for so long. To me, it's like if he were alive today, then I would think they would remain adamant about it.
Yeah, your point is, do you immortalize the guy with the statue and so forth and so on? Yeah, there's plenty of debate about that. I fully agree. His name belongs in the record books and will remain there. But by the same token, as the late Bill Verdon used to say, hey, the guy walked into the clubhouse for over 20 years and could not possibly have missed the sign that says no gambling.
Yeah.
And yet he thumbed his nose at it. I'm better than that. I'm Pete Rose.
Bigger than the game?
And I'm bigger than the game. I'm bigger than the game, and there is nobody who's bigger than the game itself. Now, I think that's probably what I'm betting. That's what'll get that.
Put the bet in today.
I think what they will do is bring him back, reinstate him, and so forth, and allow his records to appear in the Hall of Fame. But do they do that as an individual? There'd be an awful lot of crying to do from the media and from the fans who say, hey, this isn't right. And I don't think Major League Baseball wants to get into that debate.
Well, one of the things we talked about when we were discussing bringing this up is we're at the frontier of this new life that we lead with betting becoming available to everybody almost everywhere. And we're already seeing just the very beginnings of what that Pandora's box is going to be with college athletics. And that's where it was bad, really, really bad in the 70s and the 60s. It was really, really bad then. And it had kind of gone away, or at least we didn't hear about it as much. Now it's starting to seep back into our culture. Mm-hmm. At this point, do we take a guy who knowingly bet on his own team while he had control of their outcome, elevate him into the highest sports Hall of Fame there is? I mean, it's not it's not the Hall of Very Good. It's the Hall of Fame. It's the best of the best. It is the most prestigious sports Hall of Fame. It raises above everybody else. And do we put him into the Hall of Fame and say it was okay for him because he was really good? And what example does that set to everybody else out there that's thinking, well, I can make $1,000 tonight if I just score a couple less baskets?
Joe, I don't think there's anybody who would debate that philosophy. Because it does. It really violates the direction that an individual is asked to do as a citizen. You walk the straight and narrow. You follow the law. And he did not follow the law. But can you deny what he did as a Major League Baseball player, the accomplishments that he made? And no, you can't. That's why I say I think they being baseball, come to a conclusion where somehow they will honor the individual without having his name immortalized in there. I think that's probably what's going to happen. But if they don't, if they go ahead and present him, and it's the Rose family that has brought this up, and the commissioner apparently understands that, well, then you run into an ongoing debate that's has the possibility of fracturing the credibility of the sport. And that's where the bottom line is. You can't do that.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Is if people lose faith that the outcome of the game is not decided by chance, talent, luck, then you're professional wrestling. That's what you become.
Exactly.
And it surprised me. I feel of the major sports league in America, baseball seems to be the one that holds itself in that highest regard of the image of the sport, and it's because they have the history. the baseball in America has been played for a lot longer than the basketball and the football and all that. So they have the legacy, they have the tradition, and they seem to lean on it more. And like you said, the Hall of Fame is stingier, and like everybody who puts up good statistics is getting to the NFL Hall of Fame nowadays. Baseball is, for better or worse, sometimes a little too much in my mind, but they're keeping a lock pad on the Hall of Fame. They only let the true elites get in there, and to let, like you said, let Pete Rose in now after all these years of being like, he's not in because this. There's been a clear-cut reason why. And then to fold on it now sends a message and tarnishes what I think they're trying to keep as a pristine, like the aura of Major League Baseball.
I have to agree. I think that's exactly
I think I agree with that as well, because I think back to, Shoeless Joe Jackson is still not in the Hall of Fame. He's been dead for a much longer time.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of conversations of him being more deserving, because you can argue that he didn't even know that that World Series was being thrown. He still hit 400 in that World Series in 1919, but it wasn't as good as he was hitting in the regular season, so they assumed that he was part of the conspiracy. So, I've had mixed feelings over the years, because I was a fan of watching Pete Rose play. I got to see him play when he played for Montreal. I got to see a game when he was an Expo, So, but I think you're right. I think baseball is that sport that holds itself to the highest regard and always had, and I applaud them for it, and I appreciate it. And so I don't think this is the right thing to do, to put him in the Hall of Fame.
I think the only thing that makes it the right thing to do in my mind, and you guys know I'm adamantly against it, is if just to put him in to end the whole conversation, just to finally be done with it.
Right.
It's over. It's not this big thing that's hanging out there. It's not this big sports debate that we can have all the time. But the thing that really gets me is we just never seem to learn. It's like people have forgotten. It's like, yeah, he was a bad guy. He bet on sports, and I know the argument is, well, Babe Ruth wasn't the best guy in the world. Ty Cobb certainly was not the best guy in the world. What about all the players that kept African-American players away from being in Major League Baseball? None of those guys were good guys, but a lot of them are in the Hall of Fame. And yeah, you're right. They're not good people for the things that they did, but they didn't tarnish the sport the way that Pete Rose did. I'm not saying that they didn't tarnish the sport, because sometimes it is tarnished. But
there was no law that they violated.
That's
None
true.
whatsoever.
Right.
And Rose did.
Well, you got to look at, too, then you got to consider Barry Bonds. You basically got the same argument with Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds, really good baseball player. Barry Bonds has a ton of records. Why isn't he in the Hall of Fame?
Right. Well, and that's the steroid era has been kept out of the Hall of Fame because people are so adamant that they shouldn't have been taking steroids.
But
there's a difference, however, because Bonds is on the ballot, and it's the baseball writers.
Right.
The baseball writers who have that final judgment, and they vote him out. It's not like he's banned from the ballot as Rose was.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But just the hypocrisy of the baseball writers, because that's a big deal to me.
Sure.
Like Mark McGwire, Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, to the best of my knowledge, were never caught using steroids.
Right. It was all speculation.
The three of them were.
Bonds was. He was involved in that laboratory deal.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But the three of them, they have one thing in common. None of them were very good with the media.
It's true.
They were not very good with the sports writers.
They didn't like to talk. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they didn't like to talk to media. Mm-hmm. Big Papi, caught. No argument about him going into the Hall of Fame. Right. None whatsoever. He was caught. He said, no, I didn't do it. He tested positive. Everybody just brushed that aside and pushed him right into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Because you know what? People like him.
Well, and I think that's a fault of baseball for the writers to have so much influence on the Hall of Fame like that, because it is their opinion.
We kept Jim Rice out for years.
Yeah,
but that is the allowance. That's what Major League Baseball says. The writers will have the ultimate decision to make. Period! Exclamation point.
Mark Grace.
Yep.
Mark Grace led his decade in hits, and every other player that led a decade in hits is in the Hall of Fame except him.
And that's why I think these riders should be I think they should be required to make their votes public, because if you have the final say, you got to back it up. If you're the one guy that said Ichiro Suzuki was not a Hall of Famer this year, I would love for you to tell me why, other than because it was his first time on the ballot.
Identify yourself, absolutely.
When we come back, we'll tell you what we're watching on TV this afternoon. It's Ned Talk.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Chiefs Radio Network.
You know, I love having those conversations about baseball, and that's the reason why I love baseball. It's poetic. It's different than any other sport in my mind.
It is.
And I think that's missed on a lot of people because they want action, want something going on, want hitting. You get a different type of hitting in baseball. The lines go on forever, Ned. They start at a point and then they go out forever.
Well, the fact of the matter is you just summarized the game right there. In between pitches, what's he going to throw next? And what's the strategy? Are they moving the infield? Are the outfielders shifting over? What kind of a pitch is what's going to happen? There's that magic moment in every game in which the contest is decided by a particular move. That's what I love about it and the thought process that goes into it. No, it isn't constant action. Do you need constant action? It would ruin the game if there was.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is the way it's played now. I do disagree with some of the little adjuncts that have been put into it. I don't like the ghost runner not one tiny little bit. But the fact remains that there are some advantages. Pitch clock, not bad.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that the appeal of balls and strikes is not necessarily a bad move at all. Does it slow the game up? No, because the appeal is instantaneous. But the fact of the matter remains, it's a great game. And it's one that I think will make at least I hope it does anyway, a big rally amongst the the support from the fans, because it's always going to be a part of our fabric.
Yeah, it's just, I love baseball. I have so many memories growing up of baseball, watching it and playing it and being a part of it. And I've spent most of my life involved in it somehow or another, whether it was a player or a fan or an umpire or a scorekeeper or a coach. And one thing I always said is just try to pass the love of the game on to the next generation, because when you play, when you're involved in it, it's your game. But you also realize that you're a steward of it and that you have to take care of it to pass it along to the next group of people so they'll take care of it. And I think that's my biggest reason for Pete Rose not being in the Hall of Fame. He didn't take care of the game.
Did not at all.
Put himself above it. Anyway, we'll get off our soapboxes now. I'll get off my soapbox now, and I'll dry my eyes for the tears of baseball that I have. And let's talk about what we're going to watch on TV this afternoon, Ned.
Well, in my case, if I do watch, I've got the chores to do, the Sunday afternoon chores, but the Bears are playing this afternoon. So I might want both Bears, matter of fact, baseball Bears and the basketball Bears are both playing. So the basketball Bears are on TV. Baseball Bears are playing Louisiana Monroe. They've gotten off, they being the Bears, to a slow start. May wander over there, but probably watch a little bit of the basketball game, and then that'll probably be it.
What about you, Alec?
Oh, the afternoon, if I'm watching, there's Celtics-Nuggets is a pretty good NBA matchup that's on here. Rematch, like last two NBA champions going. St. Louis Blues go to the Dallas Stars. That's at 5, so I might tune in for some of that. But most likely this afternoon is getting outside. I got a puppy to take on a walk, and it's too nice to be inside.
What about you, Josh?
Well, I may try to watch some hockey later too. It just depends. My mother's birthday was yesterday, and
Happy birthday, Mama Roberts.
She had mentioned that she would love to go to Indigo Sky this afternoon, so I may take her down there. We'll see.
All right, real quick question I'll get you guys out on today. The Deebo Samuel trade to the Commanders, big deal or no deal?
Yeah, it's big deal. Very big deal. And Washington benefits greatly from that. San Francisco there minus a pretty good receiver, but the Washington with Jalen Daniels at quarterback, watch out. They'll be tough.
What do you think, Alec?
Very good move. They only had to give up a 5th-round pick. They are taking on the rest of Deebo's contract, which I believe was 17-something million this year, but Washington was a team with cap space. So to me, to give up a 5th and then potentially get him and re-signed to pair, and now you pair him with Terry McLaurin. That's a big get. That roster, I don't think they're a flash in the pan, but they're going to have to add some things to have as good a year going back. But they're making good moves.
What do you think, Josh?
Well, I think it was a great move for them. They ended up having a great season, and that's just going to make them even better next year.
Well, you know what? The best move they ever made was getting rid of Daniel Snyder.
Yeah, exactly.
Does Daniel Snyder belong in the Hall of Fame? No, I'm just
No.
All right. If you want to find us as a podcast, you can do so at our website at 1047thecave.com. Download us there on your smartphone app, or just search out Ned Talk wherever you go to. Let's see. Who do I need to thank? Corbin Campbell, Brian Tyndall, Mike the Intern, and Nick Fury. We'll see you guys next Sunday at noon for Ned Talk.